Jai Gurudev, and welcome to this another episode of Yoga System. The summary of pages 2nd of July till 7th of July. And in this week, we will see another amazing story of a sage whose name is Uddalaka. Uddalaka, and in this story, it is his inner journey, inner understanding, inner reflection, and inner contemplation about understanding the true nature of the consciousness. He talks about the limitations of the mind and the ego sense, and so beautifully explains everything when he sits for meditation and contemplates and reflects everything on his own. So let us begin. So it is still a continuation of what Vasishta was saying, Sage Vasishta was saying to Lord Rama on 2nd of July, page number 184. So Vasishta continued, O Rama, do not take your stand on concepts and percepts of the mind, which are subtle and sharp, and the mind has been put together by time, and it's gained great strength in course of time. So the concepts are formed after the percepts. Percepts are the perceptions that the mind is perceiving the whole world. The mind is understanding the whole world, and after the mind is understanding the whole world, percepting everything, the concepts are formed, and both this perception is illusionary, and conceptions are also illusionary, because this whole world is illusionary. Even the body is illusion, the body is not existing, the senses are not existing, the mind is not existing. It is just the expression of that consciousness when it's getting conceptualized and getting condensed. So by now you must have realized this, and now if you realize this, if you understood this, intellectual understanding is also okay at this stage. You don't have to have the experiential understanding, but intellectually also, if you know, yes, there is something that is existing within us, and the mind is depending on it, the body is depending on it, but it is not depending on the body and the mind. That is why when we say somebody has gone, or somebody has passed away, or somebody is dead, so it is actually the expression that we're using for the consciousness, that it is gone, it is passed away, it is not there. And what we call it as a dead is the solidified expression of that consciousness in the form of the body and the mind, which is there, which was expressing that consciousness, and we were considering, and the consciousness was interacting with the whole world through using this body and mind. And now that consciousness is not using that body and mind, and not reflecting through that, and not utilizing itself. That's why we call it as it is a dead body, or it is a dead person. However, that consciousness is never dying or never being born. So that's what are the concepts and the percepts of the mind, which are very subtle and very sharp, and then it is getting strength over the time and over the course of the time. For example, whatever is your name, now your name will have the strongest conception inside you, because that is the thing you have been hearing from a lot of time. From day one you are born, day one this body has come into the existence, you are just hearing that name. Now next thing is your gender. Whatever is your gender, since your childhood, since you started realizing your awareness of the body, getting the awareness of the body, you have heard people around you calling you by a girl or a boy, and that gender and that name has got the strongest impressions on you, because it has been there for the longest course of the time. Bring it under control by wisdom before time fails this creeper known as body. And then he says how you can do this by contemplating on my words, and how the sage Uddalaka attained the supreme truth. And then he said there was a sage who was living in one of the mountain, and he was there on the tree. Near the tree, he was engaged himself into the austerities and the study of the scriptures and so on. And then the wisdom arose in him. So while sitting, He was contemplating and he was thinking about all those things. What is liberation? Which is said to be the foremost among the objects to be attained, upon attaining which one does not experience sorrow and is not born again. When shall I be rest permanently into that state? When will be my mental agitations caused by desires and cravings will cease? When will I be freed from the thoughts like this is I have done and this is I should done? When will I be able to look upon the diverse activities of the people with the playfulness of a child? And will my mind attain the utter consensus? When will I, living in the cave with the mind in utter tranquility, remain like a rock in the state in which there is no movement of thought at all? So he is just contemplating and asking, when will this happen? Because I haven't reached to that state yet. I know the mind is functioning, I know the body is functioning, but I haven't crossed this entity called body and mind and rested in myself. He's asking that. Thus reflecting, Uddalaka continued practice of the meditation, but his mind continued to be agitation. Some days, however, the mind abandoned the external objects and remained in the state of purity. At other times, it was disturbed. And then he is continuing his meditation. So, whatever the technique, in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the one of the sutras says, Satu Dirgha Kala Nirantarya Satkara Sivita Drudagvamihi. So, to establish into that foundation of who you are, you have to keep doing the practice, only one practice, okay? Not doing the hundreds of practice from the hundreds of teachers and hundreds of masters. Just follow one path, just be devoted to one master, just be practice one particular thing, and Satu Dirgha Kala for a long time, Nirantarya, without any break. Satkar Sevita, with honor and respect. You cannot just take that thing for granted, because that is the tool, that is the vehicle which is going to take you and show you the who real you are. Then you have to be very much careful and respectful towards that, honoring that thing. And Uddalaka entered into the, and then of course, then he was, and then one day when he was walking somewhere, then he reached to the cave, and here there is a description of the cave and the area around the cave, and he entered there and he started meditating there, and in that also he got some amazing experiences and he reflected on himself. Oh mind, what have you to do with this world appearances? Wise men do not come into the contact with what is called pleasure, which turns into the pain later. He who abandons the supreme peace of that lies within and goes in search of sense pleasure, abandons delightful garden and goes into the bush of poison herb. So he just actually analyzing everything about the sense pleasure and the pleasures that the mind generally seeks. Do not perish like a deer which is struck by the sound of the music and the bells, not like a male elephant that is trapped with the help of the female elephant, not like a fish, and not like a, he just given some examples, amazing examples. And then this is again interesting part. Oh foolish mind, all these perish being subject to the just one sense craving. So he is giving how the other animals are using just one sense object for fulfilling their needs. The deer used the sense of hearing, the bee used the sense of smell, the moth used the sense of sight, and the elephant used the sense of touch, and the fish used the sense of taste. But we as a human being, he's being very nicely put this, you are the victim of all the five temptations. So our mind as a human being is tempted by all the five sense objects. You want to see particular thing, you want to smell particular thing, you want to taste particular thing, you want to touch particular thing, and you want to hear particular thing. You want to, all these sense objects are always active because of the senses are active, and because of the mind is active. So everything is because of the mind is but the product of ignorance. When the ignorance wears out, then the mind wears out. Hence you are in the process of being worn out. And then once you start realizing that mind is not it is a limited entity and it is an illusion and it is depending on the sense object and vice versa, the sense objects getting created because of the desires arising in the mind, then you start realizing that it is going to worn out and it is going to get tired at one day, because the um, the desire is unlimited, but the limitation, the body has got it, the body has got limitations, and the desires are unlimited. So there will never be a match. The mind will like to have more, but the body will only be able to enjoy limited, and then after that definitely one day the body and mind are going to worn out. Oh mind, I am egoless, infinite, homogeneous consciousness. I have nothing to do with who who are the cause of the ego. Now, after talking about the mind, he is shifting into the understanding about the ego. The infinite self cannot possibly be squeezed into the mind anymore, as an elephant cannot be squeezed into the wood apple fruit. So now he is talking about the infinite consciousness and how mind is limited. He is giving the example of that. I have carefully investigated, I have observed everything from the tip of my toes to the top of my head. I have not found anything of which I can say, this I am. Who is I? So if you also do this, the one common word that the everything sorry, everything in the world refers to themselves as is I. Everybody says, I am this, I am that, I am doing this, I have done this. However, if you start investigating and start finding what exactly is this I inside me, where can I find it? What can I say that is I? When you talk about the body, then you say, this is my body. So there is someone else who is claiming this body to be theirs. Then you talk about the mind, then you say, this is my mind. In my mind there are lots of thoughts. My mind is agitated, my mind is troubling me, my mind is relaxed, my mind is peaceful. So there is someone who is claiming it is my mind. So mind is different and the someone is different. Same with your intellect, same with your ego sense. This is my ego which is popping up, this is my memory which is not working properly. We always give this reference and refer, and you talk from that point from where you always say, this is mine, this is my mine. However, the subject that is claiming all these objects to be itself is different, and that is where the whole search of I goes, and I reaches. If you start properly, keep going deep inside and understand, then you will see that the I has reached that destination where the I itself is ready to dissolve with the I-ness for finding itself. However, whatever I am saying is the experience of myself. So you cannot understand from this. You cannot understand from the book. You cannot understand from whatever I am saying. You have to experience this on your own. Your intellectual understanding is getting better and better, but that is also forming some kind of concepts and ego. Understand that, and then move towards the experiential understanding by doing this practice of neti, or I am not this, I am not this, I am not this, and reaching to that particular source which will say and claim, dissolving with yourself, that will say, this is me, or I am with myself, or whatever that entity, whatever that wording will be that time. A meditator meditating on meditator, and then that I being one with I. In this body in which there is flesh, bone, blood, who says, this I am. Motion is nature of energy, thinking is inherent in consciousness. Old age, death are natural to the body, who says, this I am. And now he's just contemplating and telling amazing examples of how all the parts of the body and the mind, this how they say, this I am, this I am, this I am. Oh mind, nor these concepts I am, but the infinite consciousness, pure and independent. I am all this and there is no I. Both expressions are same truth, not else is truth. So this is no I, means when you talk about this body, and the way we said initially, to understand that reality, you have to actually let go of whatever is not you and whatever you can see away from you. So that is the one part, this is not me, this is not him, this is not me. However, the moment you get a glimpse of the infinite consciousness, or glimpse of that consciousness within you in the purest form, then you start realizing, oh my goodness, the other thing is also true. This is not me, this is not me, this is not me, this is not me. I reached to a level where I realize that there is something within me which is reflected as this and this. So my body is also me, my senses are also me, my mind is also me, my thoughts are also me, everything is just me. So everything is not me and everything is me. Though both the things are contradictory and opposite, they both are true. Hence, O senses, perform your functions without being hampered by memory. This memory is a mental condition, is not a fact, a truth. It is non-different form and not depending on infinite consciousness. It can therefore be easily dispelled by merely not reviving it in consciousness. Hence, O mind, abandon the perception of diversity and realize the unreality of your own independence from the infinite consciousness. And realize the unreality of your own independence from the infinite consciousness. And oh mind, abandon the perception of diversity. Oh mind, abandon the perception of diversity. Everything, see, the existence of mind is there because there are two. If there is no two, then the mind will not be able to perceive that. That is why when we say, I am only one, it is just the one infinite consciousness, it is just the one thing, then the mind is not be able to reach that, because mind can't perceive that, mind can't get that, because it won't have the understanding. It has to have two, me and this, me and that, me and whatever is outside, subject and object, subject and object. That is why the diversity is creating the perception, and that is why the mind is existing. Realizing the unreality of your own independence, and you are unreal, and once you realize that you are unreal, and then your own independence and from the infinite consciousness, and then that is liberation. The moment you realize that you are unreal of your own independence from the, you cannot exist without the infinite consciousness, you are existing because of the infinite consciousness. The moment you realize that, then it is called liberation. You are liberating from the conceptual mind. You are understanding that the existence of the mind is there because of this consciousness, and not the other way around. The consciousness is not there because of the mind, but the mind is there. Mind is getting the energy, power, and its source from the infinite consciousness, and it's reflecting and moving outward and perceiving the information from the outward. So in reality, consciousness cannot be conditioned. It is unlimited and subtler than the subtlest atom, hence beyond the influence of the mental conditioning. Now, consciousness cannot be conditioned. Something which cannot be conditioned, but it is the reflection of that which is come into there, which can be conditioned. So it's like, you cannot stir the moon. Can you stir the moon? No. You cannot move the moon. You cannot shake the moon. However, the reflection of the moon in the water, if you stir the water, if you shake the water, then you will see the moon reflection in that will start shaking. The same thing is happening. It is the reflection of the consciousness which is there in a small, limited, condensed form, depending on the body. If the body is not there, mind is not there. Mind is not there, body is not there. Means existence of the body is not there. And that is why it's thinking that it is the consciousness, and it has got the ability to do. And when that shaking, that is reflecting, you feel like, oh, my consciousness is reflecting, I am doing all those things. But it is not the other way either. The consciousness cannot be conditioned. It is the mind who gets conditioned and start doing all this drama. And then let the body continue to live in the world brought into the being of the ignorance activity, or let abandon it. I am consciousness unaffected by all this. And then the ego sense is vain delusion. The mind is like the mirage, and the objects of the world are inert substances. Who is it that says I am? The body is an aggregate of flesh, blood. Mind vanishes on inquiry into its nature, self-limitation of consciousness, and such other concepts are insentient. What is the ego? The senses exist and engages in self-satisfying activities all the time, and the substances in the world are the substances of the world. Where is the ego then? So he's talking about what is ego, and he's inquiring into that, and he's saying everything is happening, everything I'm perceiving from the world, everything is going back into the world, everything is staying into me when I'm in the world. And where does the ego comes from? This is a very interesting thing. We say we are going to um, renounce. What are you going to renounce? There is nothing that you have first of all got for yourself. Your body has come from here, your mind has come from here, your senses have perceived all the data, your intellect has come from here, the food that you have eaten because of this body has formed and grown, that is come from here. Everything is come from here. After you die, everything means after you leave the body, everything will go back into the everything into all these five senses. So what is your in the first case that you can say this is mine, that you can form the ego? So that is why he is saying here, you have got everything that you nature is nature, and its qualities are interact with on one another. So where is the ego? The self, which is consciousness, exists as the supreme self of all, everywhere, into all bodies at all time. Where am I? What am I made of? What is my form? Made of whom? What shall I acquire and what shall I reject? There is thus nothing which can be called I, and which undergoes being or non-being. When there is no ego sense in truth, how can the ego sense be related, and to whom? When there is no ego sense, when there is not, doesn't exist of the independent entity as you, as a mind, as a body, then what I am going to refer that back to, and to whom I am going to referring back to whose ego? And what is the ego? You see, there is no ego, then what are you talking about? This is very nice contemplation, amazingly contemplating and just thinking the all aspects of our own existence, where our mind is getting caught, where our ego is getting caught, where that individuality is coming and telling us we are different from what the reality is. But in short, we are not actually different. We are just a part of that reality, reflection of that reality, that expression of that reality into the different forms, like intellect, memory, body, mind, all those. I am that reality who do not suffer in delusion. Even if one assumes the substantiality to be real, there is no relationship between that and the self, just because they exist side by side. Yeah, like then he's giving the example of even if one assumes the senses functions are senses. Now, even if one assumes the sustainability, we read that the senses functions as senses, and the mind exists as mind, and the consciousness is untouched by these. Senses functions as senses, mind it is like mind, and the consciousness is not touched by it. What is relationship, and how does it come into the being? Just because they exist side by side, it is not right to assume the relationship. A stone and an iron may be lying side to side, but not unrelated to each other. Wonderfully said, isn't it? Like, you can have the water and oil into each other, but it will be different than each other. The same thing, it is said again, the mirage, the reflection of yourself will be right in front of you in the mirror, but reflection is not you, it is the reflection of you. The same thing is said here. Uddalaka continued to reflect. It is only when the false ego sense has arisen that the perverse notions, this is mine, this is his, arise then, and when it seen that all these are tricks of the ego sense. This unreal notion cease to be. Once you realize that, oh my goodness, how much big drama I have created around me as my own world. This is all foolish and this is all not real, because my ego sense is not real. I am not real. This body is not real. Everything is existing because of the natural, spontaneous thing that is happening and going on in this world. Like the animals are existing, like the plants are existing, like the creatures are existing, like the bacteria, viruses, unseen things also existing. The same way human beings are also existing. We just got that intellect which is telling us we are existing. That's why the whole drama and the whole world has been created. Even as ocean exists in the past, present, and the future as ocean, the same water temporarily assumes the forms of the wave. Means in the ocean is there always, past, future, present, ocean is there. But when the wave comes, the wave arises its form and says, oh, I am existing for a few seconds. I am existing for a few seconds. I am going to destroy this. I am going to help this. Whatever all this drama. All this is forever cosmic being, and all the times it is only fool who entertains feeling that this I am in relation to the temporary appearances known as body. The same way the ocean is existing, the consciousness is also existing, and in that consciousness, like this, the bodies are arising, falling down, bodies are arising, falling down, living creatures, living beings are arising, falling down. And when they are arising, we are thinking, oh, this is I, this is my body, and this is I'm existing. In the same way, the mind was consciousness in the beginning and will be consciousness again at the end, after the nature and function of the mind has ceased. Why then it's called differently in the middle? So mind, before this consciousness got this body and started living as whatever the name and the gender of this body is, after that it is going to go down again. So in between also, why it is behaving like it is different from that? When the consciousness realizes itself and abandons the self-limited mental conditioning, the mind is freed from its coloring and rests into its essential nature, which is consciousness. When the mind, gathering to itself all its limbs, offers itself into the fire of pure consciousness, it purifies and attains the immortality. So when the mind starts reaching to its source, going back, not in front, not in forward, not going outward, going inward, then it starts realizing it is not real and it starts dissolving into the pure consciousness. And that is always happens. In between the two thoughts, where does your mind go? In between the two actions, where does your mind go? In between the 2 days at night when you sleep, where does your mind go? It doesn't go out anywhere. It dissolves into yourself. It is happening every second, every now and then. The mind has to dissolve for a fraction of a second for the next thought to arise and the existence to arise. Again dissolve, again come back, again dissolve, again come back. When the mind perceives, the 7th of July, page number 189, the last page for today. When the mind perceives the body as a distance from it, abandons its own conditioning, and recognizes its own transient nature, it is victorious. Mind and body are each other's foes, hence supreme happiness follows their destruction. For when they come together, there is a host of suffering. The mind gives birth to the body through its own thought force, and throughout the body's lifetime, the mind feeds it with its own sorrow. When thus the mind and the body are constantly engaged in mutual destruction, how can one have happiness? It is by the destruction of the mind that there can be happiness. Hence, the body tries every day in deep sleep to destroy the mind. I can't use the word destroy the mind. I will better use the word to dissolve the mind. Because destroy, still has that negativity little bit attached to that. Just my personal opinion. I'm not going against the author of this book, but just saying it just dissolve into that consciousness and come out of the consciousness, dissolve and come out. However, self until the self knowledge is attained, one unwillingly promotes the other strength of the other, and they seem to function together in common purpose. If the mind ceases to be, body ceases to be. Two, on account of the cessation of the thought force and mental conditioning. But mind does not cease to be when the body dies. Hence, one should strive to kill the mind. So that he's saying that conditioned mind remains as it is after the body dies, and it never. So that's another thing that it's been followed in many religions or in many traditions, that the mind and the memory and that little bit gentle bubble with all the impressions carries away with the help of the consciousness and gets another body, and the rebirth and the next birth is happen and all that. So at one particular level, whatever this is said here, it is said the same thing, that the mind is carrying all that, and then after the body is died also is staying there, and then after that it's again reborn into the different body and is fulfilling its unfulfilled desires. Where there is self-knowledge, there is neither mind nor the senses nor the tendencies and habits. I have attained the supreme state. I have emerged victorious. I have attained the liberation, nirvana. To me, now mind, body, and senses are playthings. To me, now the mind, body, and the senses are playthings. Purity, total fulfillment of desires, friendliness to all, truthfulness, wisdom, tranquility, blissfulness, sweetness in the speech, supreme magnanimity, open one-pointedness, realization of the cosmic unity, fearlessness, absence of divided consciousness, non-personality. These are my constant companions. So these are basically the characteristics and the nature and the natural tendencies that you see in the consciousness when you reach to that level. Friendliness, tranquility, blissfulness, sweetness in the. That's why most of the sages and masters and gurus, you will see they will have all these qualities, because it is a natural quality that the consciousness has got. You don't have to work to get this. It just automatically arises up when you come in touch with the consciousness. Since at all time everything everywhere happens in every manner, in me there is no desire and aversion towards anything, whether pleasant or unpleasant. Since all delusion have come to an end, since the mind has ceased to be, and all evil thoughts have vanished, I rest peacefully into myself. So this is where he stops, and then Vasishtha continues from next page, telling that what happens to his meditation afterwards, and where does he reach, and how much more knowledge he gets, all those things. So this was the story of Uddalaka, which is actually a self journey of on its own of understanding his true nature and using the tool of contemplation, using the tool of viveka, discrimination, and understanding the truth, what is real and what is not real, what is permanent, what is non-permanent, what is existing all the time and what is temporarily existing. And then he comes to the conclusion, the body, mind, ego, sense, all these things which are there, the whole world is made up of that, is unreal. What is real is going deep within myself and becoming aware of that entity that I refer to as I, reaching to that point at the deep of my soul or source, and then being one with that. In that time I realize that I am liberating myself from all these concepts which are attached to me since I have received this body. And that's where we will end. You also keep contemplating on this, whatever we discussed today. You also keep thinking the entities inside you which are real, which is unreal, which is changing, which is not changing, and taking back your attention to that source which is always there, which was there, and which will be there. On that note, we will end here. Jai Gurudev.